So to make the clay, we like to do, I call it the volcano method. So you just put some powder on your desk, make a little hole, but know that if you make a hole too deeply, it might run out, and then start adding your water. And you have to be careful about how you pour. If you pour too fast, too much, the water will start pouring out of the top. As you're bringing the powder up over the edge of the water, it can explode out of the sides. If that happens, you just grab it and pull it in, no big deal. You're gonna make a mess. That's kind of the joy of clay. And if you've ever done any sort of baking or anything, it almost feels like working with dough. And we'll kind of just keep adding water and keep making little pits for the water to fit into, and then pulling the powder up over that water. Making little caverns, little places for the water to hold into, and pushing the powder up above. And you try to keep it kind of centralized on your desk. The wider it gets, the bigger of a mess it makes, and the harder it is to clean up and pull back together. That's a perfect technique of pushing down and pulling. Kind of making little bowls each time. Add your water, fold it over. Add your water, fold it over. And you can notice the texture start to change too. The clay in the middle is starting to get kind of clumpy and lumps, and the powder's on the edges, and so you got to keep pulling that powder back up into that main pile. And then once it starts to get formed enough, all that loose powder will start to stick, and it becomes one large ball of clay. It takes some patience. You can't be afraid of some mud and some dirt. It's kind of cool how the water just disappears into it and just soaks in as it gets further along. And now you'll start to see it's looking more and more like clay. So to make a couple pounds of clay, it takes about 5 minutes. And there's no point in washing your hands at any point because you're just going to keep getting dirtier as you go. And as you get further along, the clay is less sticky, and so the clay that was stuck to your fingers will start sticking into the clay itself and making it so you don't even need to wash your hands at that point. I think about it when I was a kid and I would chew bubble gum and it would get stuck to my face when I make a bubble, and you use the bubble gum to pull the gum off. It's kind of the same thing with the clay. The clay will kind of pull itself off. Notice how now it's becoming a nice little mound of clay itself. So we can start using that to pull the powder up all around. And it'll kind of start peeling itself up. It still needs more water, as you can see all the powder, but it's getting way closer now. And we know the fundamental qualities of clay. We know that it's going to hold the shape in which you form. We know it's going to have plasticity. It's going to be able to move and be pliable. And then when you let this clay dry and you put it in a kiln, it'll become ceramic. That's what we're looking for to know that this is clay and not just mud. There is a difference. And this is the part too where it gets kind of nice. If you have an extra card like a student ID card, you can use that to kind of scrape up the bits and just try to kind of consolidate the mess. How do you know when it's done? Usually what I do is I will roll it up in a little log called a coil, and I'll wrap it around my finger and I'll see how it breaks. If it doesn't break, I know I'm getting close. If it sticks excessively, I know it's too wet. If it's too wet, I add more powder. If it's too dry, I add more water. But notice how it's picking its own self up now. So it's sticky enough that you can roll it and it'll pick up the powder all along the area. Thank you for demoing for us.